Hey, how's it going? Well, kia ora everyone. I think we'll make a start. I think there's a nice little group here and we'll get going, and the sooner we get started, hopefully we'll get done before lunch and I don't bore you too much or your stomach doesn't rumble. Malole lei, tolofalava, tēnā koutou katoa. Ko Maunguika, ko Aoraki i te maunga, ko Waimakariri, ko Waipao i te awa, ko te wakarere rangi i te waka, ko Peretana, ko Amerika i te iwi, ko Ngāti Kahungunu tōku wāhine, ka whakapapa hau, ka runga i te rā, ka whakapapa hau ko Ngāti Kahungunu hoki. Ko no ōtau tahi ahau, ko te raki pai whenua i te kāinga, ko hemi ahau. Welcome everyone, my name's James McIntyre. I am from American and English descent, but I was born and raised in Ōtautahi Christchurch, Burnside High School represent. After I finished my undergraduate degree at the University of Canterbury and Christchurch College of Education, I moved up to Te Raki Pai Whenua, the North Shore of Auckland, and met a local girl with Kahungunu descent, and 5 kids later, I'm still there. The rest is history, but I have a strong connection obviously to Waipawa, the Central Hawke's Bay, but also jet-setting around a lot of the North Island as much as possible on holidays with extended family. My presentation today is entitled Doing It Properly, and what skill learning can look like in contemporary or in compulsory physical education, so year 1 to year 10. Just a bit of background on me. I taught secondary school health and physical education and outdoor education for 13 years, and then moved into providing PLD to primary school teachers through the Play.Sport initiative to start off with, and now I'm working with Healthy Active Learning, doing a similar thing. And through my time, and this may be common to all, there's a lot of statements that people make about what physical education is and how they feel about it. And this phrase, doing it properly, came up quite often. And I've got some statements around the walls of where we are, and I want you to, in a moment, there's some post-it notes on your tables. Grab a pen if you want. Have a read of these statements. There's 2 sheets that I've got and doubles of those, so the same one there, same one there, same one there, same one there. Have a look at it, read it, and I really love some feedback where you can stick a post-it note on there saying, oh, that's a load of rubbish, no one ever says that, or I've heard that before, or actually, this is what I think about it, or you're out the gate, James, you're dreaming, or I agree with this. So just have a look. I'll give you some time, about 2 or 3 minutes to have a look at it, and I'd love some feedback on it. Thank you.
Internal relief comes up. Is it practical? I freak out today. You can do it.
Yeah. You can do it. Just use the nice students in the fridge.
They're all quite common.
They're up on the screen if you want, KP, as well.
Oh no, we can read this one from here. I'm not.
Whose site's not that challenged yet?
You make me sound like I'm a real dinosaur. That's all right. I've got stuck in the last one.
Say so what?
Thank you.
Okay. Looks like you've all kind of made your statements. Really appreciate your comments. A lot of people supporting what's been set up here. So I like this one over here. Around it says lack of play equals lack of experience, which equals lack of practice, which equals at times lack of skill. So I like that there's a connection between play and there's a connection between experience and choices that kids make in their own spare time that might influence prior learning. You talk about, and primary school teachers, and I'm sure everyone talks about prior learning and other learning areas. How much reading do they do at home? How much maths do they do at home? And for us, prior learning is play. And opportunities for kids to choose to play in creative ways. And if there isn't playtime, then they come to a PE class and they are your priority learners because their play might be on a device or something else rather than physical play. So really appreciate this. The statement here, they need to learn the fundamental movement skills first before we can teach them TGFU stuff. Said by teachers a lot, so people have heard that before. Yeah, interesting. I did kind of categorize these two sheets on what you hear from primary school teachers and what you might hear from maybe senior primary or secondary school teachers. And so remember, we're going across compulsory PE, year 1 to 10. And so, but yeah, no, it's really cool. And hopefully we'll be able to address some of this and have a good conversation about it. That's the other thing. What I wanted to do first is kind of get back to what our purpose is as teachers of physical education. And, you know, that's a debatable thing anyway. There's huge debate amongst lots of people throughout the world about what the purposes of physical education is. And academics can't even agree on it, on what the purpose is, let alone the teachers involved. And it just depends what your background is. People might say, well, it is about being able to catch a ball. PE is about catching a ball. And you ask the regular person off the street what they think PE is about, it would be about catching a ball. But our curriculum kind of kind of states and puts out there that movement develops individuals and it develops communities, and it can develop individuals and communities. And more importantly, and kind of awkward, is that perhaps if we're talking about compulsory physical education, you're talking about the general population. People in this country say that perhaps a sense of self and a sense of belonging are more significant outcomes than the development of sporting ability. And that doesn't mean to say that sporting ability isn't important, but a more important outcome is that sense of self and belonging. And so having that in the back of the mind is really important. The flip side to this, though, is that, like it or not, the ability to be skillful and play has high social currency amongst our society, amongst our peers, kids amongst their peers. Oh, Brandon's the man. You should have seen what he did last weekend. And that's at the micro level, and then in a bigger community level, at a national level, at an international level. There's a reason why professional athletes get paid millions of dollars, because there's some high currency there. There's social currency. And so being skillful is important to people. And so we can't deny that, and we can't ignore that at the same time. But, once again, in compulsory physical education, what is achievable? And I've got some questions there, or some kind of suggestions of what might be achievable. And hopefully we'll come back to it at the end. But, perhaps we need to sort of have that in the back of our mind. What's achievable in terms of skillfulness in compulsory PE, when I'm going to propose that perhaps the most important outcome is belonging and sense of self. But I also thought it might be important to define our terms. So secondary school PE teachers here taught senior PE, and defining skills, one of those first things when you do a motor learning unit, you define skill. And I remember kind of having definitions up on the whiteboard, on the slides, around it being it's discrete and it's learned and it has a specific outcome. It has a beginning and an end. And I pulled one off an OCR GCSE website. Skills are learned patterns of movement acquired through training, learned abilities that athletes acquire through training and practice. Skill may be defined. Yeah, it was. You have those kind of narrow views of what skill is. And part of my doing my master's study, I came across some contemporary skill learning theories, and a part of it, this was definition by Allen and Wayne around what skill is, and it kind of blew my mind. That and basically said skill is far more complex, and it's part of complex systems that interact with one another. And technical proficiency is only part of it. So the whole doing it properly, that's kind of another word for technical proficiency, is only a part of it. And if you think about it, if you're technically proficient and you're doing it the right way that everyone else does it, but it's not effective, are you skillful? If it's not achieving the desired outcome, are you skillful? If you can't choose, or if you can't make the choice or the decision of when to do the right thing, apply the right skill or whatever, are you skillful? So it's application of strategy or perception of environment, being able to read the situation. We always talk about people to be good thinkers and be able to read the situation and make the decision. And sometimes people have to adapt and be creative in certain decisions. And there's a plethora of examples, and especially in any kind of sport, where athletes actually go out of the norm and be creative and adapt to the situation that they're in to get the desired outcome, to be effective. So this definition kind of blew my mind and unfortunately left those other definitions behind. And And so while we're on the kind of whole defining the terms kind of road, there's another thing that kind of Wayne made another really good comment about kind of the fundamental movement skills, TGFU kind of thing. And the whole idea that making an assumption that they are binary opposites, that one has to go before the other. So there's that statement, the kids need to learn the fundamentals first before you play the game. They're actually complementary, perhaps they're actually complementary pairs that need to be developed all along a kid's development. Because kids grow and they change and they develop, and their tactics and their skills that they have to develop will have to change as well. And quite personally, I kind of challenge the word fundamental as well. It's fundamental to what? The traditional fundamental skills program, had things like teaching kids to walk and to run. And I don't know about you guys, my kids, even my stubborn kids, it took them. They were walking and running by about 1 or 2 years old. And I'm not sure, what's the effect of trying to teach kids to walk again when they actually can. You put them, and the way you taught them is you just put them in an environment. You put, mum in front a couple of metres away, and they would walk to mum. You didn't tell them, put the right foot forward and put the left foot forward, and extension at the knee, and then you didn't have to kind of explain it to the kid. You just put them in a situation and they did it. It wasn't any teaching. And so perhaps, is it fundamental to movement in life, or is it fundamental to sport? And is it really, should they be called fundamental sport skills? Or could we just call them movement skills? But Wayne was making the point that there are movement skills and there's also game skills, referring to skillfulness as being much broader. And kids, if desired outcome is increased skillfulness and being able to, and it all probably blends into each other. If I can be a little bit more skillful, I feel better about myself, and I feel like I belong. I felt that growing up, my passport to belonging was my skillfulness. I got in the crowd of friends that I wanted to be in because I was skillful, and that's just where my self-esteem was at the time. But it could all be connected. But anyway, I digress a little bit. Another thing that I learned about these contemporary skill learning theories is this thing of non-linear pedagogy, or that basically we don't go from A to B to C all the time. It's not a step-by-step progression. And if you think about it, our whole life is like that. It's non-linear. We don't go. Sometimes it's 1 step forward and it's 2 steps back, and then it's 3 steps sideways, and then it's 4 steps forwards. But for a long time, there has been this kind of notion, and it comes down to the micro level of a PE lesson, that we feel that we need to do, we need to do a warm-up first, and then we need to do a skill development, and then if we have time, and if you're good, we'll play a game. And it could be that, we'll just chuck one ball out there, and you got two big-sided games, and it's survival of the fittest, isn't it? It's Darwinistic PE. And I'm going to give a bit of a pitch for the MoveWell resource and the MoveWell framework that gives a different kind of view on that, where let the kids play first, but leave them to play, but watch them play, and then help them to play in a way that's important, that is going to work for them. So the whole leave me, watch me, but help me in the same breath. So my big argument is that well-structured intentional games can be the centre of learning. It can develop movement skills, individual movement skills, but also group or game skills, because skillfulness, it spans across different people quite often. Our skills are enhanced when we team up together and we get a tactic and we use our tactics right and we both look good. But if we're not on the same wavelength, then both of us look bad. But it can develop a sense of belonging. It can develop identity, and it can spark learning. So the game is a kind of the centre of what can happen. Now, I want to give. You're probably going, what does this look like? Let's look at some practical examples. So I'm going to go through a whole bunch of year levels. So year 1, the little kids first, and then hopefully all the way through to year 10 with help from some colleagues. The way I'm going to frame it up is that I've got this just simple kind of example of an overarching kind of concept that you might want to get across to kids, the context that it might happen in, so the game or the activity, and what skillfulness you might want to focus on. So for instance, here we've got the year 1s and 2s, the littlies, and you've just got to imagine, if any of you get a chance to teach year 1s and 2s and do PE with them, it is you be ready for chaos, be ready for them to not listen to a word that you say, but be ready for a lot of cuteness, because they're a lot better looking than teenagers, and a lot of laughing and a lot of fun, and you just got to roll with it. But it's a lot of fun. But one of the things in level 1 of the Health and PE curriculum, one of those is about being able to articulate enjoyable experiences. So your overall kind of learning intention might be, we liked playing such and such a game because you're developing oral language skills at the same time, and that's really important for all learning that happens. And it can be just simple games of octopus or link tag or any kind of tag games. The 1v1 tag can be fun if they can understand the rules. Rats and rabbits, whatever you call it, those kind of games, they can be fine. But you also actually can talk about, how to run away from someone. What do you need to do? Or how do you chase or corner someone down? What do you need to do? How did you get that person over there? What did you do? They may not have known, but you try and get them to articulate what they were trying to do. But even just putting them in the situation, there will be some natural learning that will happen without you there, but you being there can now lift that learning to the surface and identify that. A bit older, we've got the concept of well-being and hauora comes into level 2 of the Health and PE curriculum, and so that could be an emphasis of what we're doing and how does it influence our well-being. And I've got this rāure challenges. Okay, so you've got some tikoka on your tables, some cabbage tree. First person to grab it right now. On 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, if you've got one, okay, Air 2, stand up. You get to... Brandon, you pick it up. Okay, so rāure challenges. Brandon, can you grab that other one and stick it on top of your first one? Now, the rāure challenges are, and this was kind of traditionally used, thanks to Huckle Brown, he taught me all this through his book. Traditionally, it was sometimes used in games like Te Uru for skillfulness. You've got to try and throw that, lob that bit of rāure there, and I've got to catch it on this one. Let's try it. Whoa. Okay, we're going to try that again. Now, those of you that want to give it a go, let's get up and stand up and have a go at it and just have a turn. Have a go. You can choose how far away or how close you are. Yep. Do you want one? Yep. Yep. Oh, almost. Awesome. Oh, caught it on the end. Tricky. Yeah, oh. Oh, nice work. Okay, 2 more minutes. Are you going ins and outs? Great. Awesome. Oh.
Just trying to get photos of everyone in action.
Oh, cool. Awesome. Okay. Last ones. Last ones. Okay, put your hand up if you caught the Takoka first time with your partner. You did. You guys did. Wow, that's impressive. Rest of us took a while, didn't it? Can someone kind of share kind of what you had to do to sort of get to a point where you're starting to catch the Takoka?
Start thinking about your skill ability, so maybe adjusting the distance from where you're throwing from.
Okay, adjusting the distance. Trial and error, yeah.
We watched them.
Right.
They were having success.
Yeah. And I like you guys. I mean, that's the next challenge is to catch it on its end. The next challenge is also to have two stacked on and then chuck two, and obviously going back and playing with distance. KP, were you going to say something? Okay. But what was actually happening there was a lot of relational dynamics. Whenever I do that, I've got to work out how they're going to throw it to me first. And I saw the change of how your catching arm changed in relation to how they threw it. And so there was a lot of throwing dynamics. Flight perception is really important about it. So you're having to read how it's going to fly and how they're going to do it. And once again, you start communicating. Well, don't chuck it to me. Make it lob. So I've got some time. And so, it's that kind of stuff. And kind of the accuracy force trade-off. So there's lots of those kind of things that are happening. With year 3s and 4s, obviously, you won't go into that detail, but it may be just about communication. But it also could be, how did it feel when you caught it? Because there was a lot of, first time you catch it, there's a bit of a, ooh, I did it. I'm the man. And so those, yeah. Yeah. But relating that to how our well-being and what it does to us. And obviously, you guys decided at the back how to include each other in a game. You created a game. You played ins and outs. Awesome. So let's go to kind of older primary school, and I'm kind of clumping year 5 and 6s up with 7 and 8s. You could have a unit about challenges, so the te wero, but asking in kids in groups of 3 or 4 to come up with creating their own target game and being ready to share and teach it to the rest of the class. Just putting them in that situation, they're going to be creative, but they're also going to then, obviously, you've honed in on target skills, so being able to throw. So you're going to be, you could look at throwing dynamics in different situations, because in some situations, throwing dynamics is you want distance, and there's going to be so you need force. In some instances, you need accuracy. And so even how you use your body is different. And I've seen primary school teachers that are out there with tennis balls, and they've got their one line of kids lined up that way with the tennis ball, and then they've got their partners out there, and the teachers are standing out there and go 1 foot forward, 1 foot back, and point your arm and like this. And this is, this is common. This is common sort of technique, and you think that's good, that's great. But does a darts player throw like that? Does a darts player go? He goes the other foot forward, doesn't he? Or she? Sorry, thank you. Sorry. Please forgive me. Please forgive me. Yeah. So there's more than one correct technique, isn't there? May be more than one correct technique. And once again, there could be flight perception involved, dynamical systems. Okay, moving forward to sort of intermediate school, junior high school. And I got to acknowledge Mo Gleeson here for sitting down with her and sharing what they do at Long Bay College. This is just an example of kind of the learning intentions of one of their units around contemporary learning. And they really want to hone in on, their desired outcome for the unit is kind of identifying and being able to identify, demonstrate, and understand effective strategies to enhance their performance. But they also want to kind of emphasise that being able to demonstrate interpersonal skills while they're doing that. And they've got a real big emphasis on making sure that every kid feels like PE is a place for them and they feel included and that it's an okay subject. And so that was kind of the real one of the big messages that she wanted to make sure she got across to me, is that's what they're about. But they're also about sort of helping to develop some skillfulness. And the way they do that that contemporary skill learning stuff is through games. And so there's a list of the games. And I asked, okay, what's the go-to game at Long Bay? Every department's got a go-to game. Every class or every school teacher will have their go-to game that they know the kids are going to love, and the kids just get pumped about it. And at Long Bay, it's backboard ball. You guys know backboard ball? You probably know it, but it's probably called something different. It's basically, it's similar to chook ball, but you're using a basketball backboard. Throw the ball at the basketball backboard, and either a teammate either catches it or lets the ball hit the ground. And so, I mean, when she explained to me, it was called Bret Hart's rules at my school, but another school it's called something else. And so there's always a go-to game, but they use it for the purpose. They play around with the constraints. They use a constraints-led approach in doing that, so they might modify the task. Sometimes they said, well, your kids can only catch with one hand, or they can only throw with their non-dominant hand, and they start asking questions of the kids about the dynamics of what they're doing and how that changes and what they have to think about, as well as kind of the invasion game kind of game dynamics or game skills of creating and moving into space, creating positioning, as well as holding on to possession. And these are all kind of, once again, I'm going to put a pitch for that Move Well framework that kind of can highlight some simple game skills that can be developed through games, and that teachers can, even the most unconfident teacher that has never played sport before, could get their head around and then identify learning for their kids. So, and kind of wrapping up, I do want to kind of emphasise that I feel that skill development is still important, but perhaps starting with the technical stuff you don't need to start with the technical stuff. In fact, starting with understanding whatever game that you're going to be playing first is probably a good place to start. The technical stuff can come alongside soon after. There's definitely effective ways of doing things and definitely effective techniques, but there might be multiple of those. And there's definitely some less effective techniques, and there's multiple of those. And so the notion of doing things properly is probably a little too simplistic, and I guess the notion also kind of can turn people off and turn people. It could turn them on, but it might turn a lot of people off, feeling like they can do it because there's these secret arts or techniques that they didn't learn because they didn't play as much as others did. I mean, reality is, us as physetters, we might have had our own kind of sport that we might have played, that we got some good in-depth knowledge of the finer arts of skills of that game, but not for every other game. You'd be hard pushed to find, someone that knows everything about everything. So So we all just kind of wing it and fake it until when we get in those situations, don't we? And once again, does it really matter when our end game is actually helping kids to feel like they belong and being active? That being active is for them as well, and that there's a community of kids that include each other. Because when you share with me, when you throw the ball to me, it's a non-verbal message that I accept you, that you're a part of the group, you're all right. And obviously the opposite happens. When you don't pass the ball to me, or you don't share it with me, then that's that non-verbal message that I don't accept you. But I can go back to kind of what can be achieved. I think I had 3 things up there: relative competence, competitive performance, and mastery. Mastery is a word that's used quite a bit. But once again, I would argue that mastery is relative. It's always relative to who you're with. And competitive performance is also relative to who you're with. Now, you're going to have in your program, you're always going to have, and what I mean by relative competence is I feel comfortable being a part of this group and playing with this group. And I feel like I can contribute to the game. That's my definition of relative competence. We could probably debate that. That's fine. But that's probably what, if all of your kids in your programs, either junior or senior, primary or secondary, if they feel like they included and they feel like they can contribute to playing, then, and especially if there's been an increase in competence, where they personally feel that they have improved. And so there's a notion of co-constructing success. The kids might think that they're successful. Do we think they're successful? And there's probably a place where we might need to pitch our programs. If we pitch our programs at the kids that are really keen and want to challenge themselves, and they want to challenge themselves against the real keen kids that want to challenge themselves, we might be missing the mark. And that's probably where our kind of extracurricular and community activities and sports programs can cater for those kids, to challenge them and let them challenge them to kind of rise to their level of aspiration. But I think when we're dealing with the general population of years 1 to 10, perhaps we should be making sure that they feel that they are competent and amongst their peers, and a place where they can feel like they belong and feel good about themselves. So that's all I've got to say. Nō reira, tēnā koutou katoa. Thank you. Any questions? So, yeah. Any questions? We do have a bit of time, don't we? Or have I used it all up?
No, you've got a bit of time.
Yeah.
I think it's still really important that the kids know learning outcomes before the games and everything.
Yes, definitely. So, yeah, the question was, if you're going for a game sense approach, is it important for them to understand the outcomes? Yeah, definitely. You scaffold that, you construct that with the kids beforehand, and then you may teach what the game is. So that has it in their mind. There may be some times where you may not want to, and then you might want to, so you can blindside them in the nicest possible way. Because you don't want them to give you kind of cookie cutter answers, because I know there's going to be some smart kids that go, oh, I know what they want. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Exactly, yeah. So, yeah, and you, as a smart teacher, knows when to do that and when not to do that. Yeah, definitely. Good point. Anything else? Well, I'm here. Oh, sorry, yes?
Just out of curiosity, what's your go-to game?
My go-to game, I'll tell you what my go-to game is Muggle Quidditch. Have you heard of that? You're not a Harry Potter fan?
I've seen movies.
No, not a fan of Muggle Quidditch? No, okay, that's fine, that's cool. But yeah, it's organised chaos. Yeah, but I mean, I can explain it. It's pretty hard to explain how I would play. I play Muggle Quidditch. I don't do broomsticks or anything like that. I change it up a little bit, but yeah, that's my 8-year-old nephew wanted to do it for a birthday party, and I thought I could do this with my students, and so I did. Yeah. Yeah. And this was at a boys' school as well. Yeah. Cool, thank you so much. Let's go have some kai.
Just on behalf of the Embracing Uncertainty conference team, thank you so much for the time and effort you've put into the presentation. I think it's so cool to look at a different perspective of traditional skill acquisition and how we can make it more belonging, particularly in those years that are compulsory, so we make sure everyone feels included in those compulsory P levels. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.